Hello, my History 125 students. This is Professor Collins again talking to you about weeks 4 and 5 of the course, around the week 4 discussion, and around your paper assignment that is due at the end of week 5, due on November 26th, 2 days after Thanksgiving, some 10 days from now, give or take. Just a few things, both about this week and next week, that I want to go over briefly. As far as week 4 discussion is concerned, we're shifting to Europe. We're shifting to where most of the focus for the remainder of the course will be on the development of technology, innovation, scientific method, um, and just the understanding of nature comes out of Western Europe. As with a lot of things that come evolve in this period. And the start of this is really the scientific revolution around astronomy, around the acknowledging that the sun is the center of our solar system, that the earth revolves around the sun and not the other way around. This week's focus is on Galileo and Galileo's claim, based on evidence and observation through the advent of the telescope, that in fact all of the charts around where stars are located, where other planets are located, where other orbs are located, where the sun itself is located, are off because the center of our universe, at least as far as people understood the size of the universe in the early 17th century is concerned, couldn't have been the Earth. It has to be the sun. That's how he figured, he figured it out through observation. And the church basically said, no, this contradicts our scripture. This contradicts what we say in terms of the interpretation of scripture. Of course, in reality, the scripture does not say anything anywhere near as direct as the earth is the center of the universe. It doesn't. I define anything in any part of the Old or New Testament that actually says that. It doesn't. But the Roman Catholic Church decided to interpret it this way. And it was a way for them to basically see humans as the centerpiece of God's great creation and plan, right? Rather than humans as being part of the natural order of things, so to speak. So that's a lot of this for this week is about the colliding of Western religion, particularly Roman Catholic Christianity, with the emergence of the scientific revolution in astronomy. It's not the only area where this is emerging, by the way. It's emerging in what we would know today as really all the fields of science. Chemistry, biology, physics, astronomy, which is just a combination of at least two of those three, and certainly mathematics. So that's what this week's all about. And your role is to really understand that the conflict that Galileo faces is the conflict between essentially the conflict that anyone who's seriously considered religion and their spirituality in the context of also trying to be a scientist or trying to find more knowledge, which is all a scientist really is. Trying to find knowledge through observation, through experimentation, through replicability, through all the measures that scientists use today. That's what Galileo was essentially trying to do in the early 17th century. And the fact that he was successful at it put him at odds with the Catholic Church, essentially led to a series of things that would happen to him that would cause him to lose his freedom. And it would mean that for more than 100 years after all this stuff happened with Galileo, the Catholic Church is literally denying science. Science eventually spreads its way to the rest of Western Europe, but the Vatican refuses to accept, and many Catholics refuse to accept until the middle of the 18th century. Just imagine being in a time where there is an abundance of evidence from scientists that something is occurring, that some natural phenomenon, the replicability, validity, observation, experimentation shows to be true, but there are a whole group of people who are just denying it and using that denial to oppress and imprison and basically go after others who believe this to be true because it is actually true. One can think of something more modern, like say science, like say climate change as an example, right? You know, so just 2 cents. Anyway, that's week 4. As for the next couple of weeks, some of the themes that we have learned so far in this course are the themes for this paper assignment. The paper assignment essentially is asking you about the history of the cotton gin, how we got here, and its impact on the world once it becomes used on a massive scale. So that really requires you to take the themes of the diffusion and improvement on and progress of technology over time, how technology might not progress for a while, how it might even be lost for a while, and then how it's used and reused over time. But the post is also about how a technology can have a larger and wider impact. In this case, the wider impact would include the Industrial Revolution itself, would include its impact locally, wherever it was being used. So that requires you to look at the American South in particular, its impact nationally, in this case across the US, and even its impact internationally, because cotton was not just some local commodity, right? So all of those things are at the fore in understanding the rise of cotton gin. And I've already sent all of you an article the day before the first day of class. Via email, sent all of you an article that looks at the idea of whether Eli Whitney truly did invent the cotton gin or not, right? We all automatically give him credit. The notion that Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin points to all of the sort of themes that we've talked about in this course, that one person inventing a technology all by themselves, the idea behind that is not typical in the history of technology and innovation and science. That it takes many people to build a technology that we would consider earth-shattering. It does that. I mean, for the most part, that's what it takes today. So if it takes that much today, imagine doing this, in the 18th century, the 15th century, whatever. And so the idea that Eli Whitney was the first person to ever look at raw cotton with cottonseed and go, hey, if we use a machine to comb out these seeds or squeeze them out, then we can actually clean cotton faster than if we had a bunch of humans doing it by hand. As if no one had ever thought of this before 1793, that no person had ever seen a whole field of cotton that they wanted to turn into, cotton, pick cotton and then eventually cloth, would have ever thought of, right? Especially since there are these people in the other parts of the world who have been making cotton clothing since, for a couple thousand years. South Asians for one, Arab Muslims for another group, even Chinese. So maybe look at those people too, and look at the diffusion of their technology over time. That's all the article's basically asking you to do. Now, just one brief thing I want to say about this before moving to the nuts and bolts of the paper itself, which is this. For some of you, this is a hard idea to accept, the idea that it's not just one man. It's not just one Eurasian or particularly European that's doing these sorts of things, but in point of fact, it's about a whole group of people who are who might not know each other, who live in different centuries, who might not, who are sitting around and studying the same problem, building upon the same problem through different mechanisms of using old technology and making it into new, and then coming up with something that is greater than what the original technology is, which, in other words, progress, building on an old technology to make something new. And how that technology moves from place to place over time. I mean, did Eli Whitney know about the other older technologies when he started working on the cotton gin? That's a question you're going to have to answer. The readings probably answer for you in part, that sort of thing. But the idea that this one person came up with this technology is something that many of you might have a hard time dealing with, right? That that this actually is probably really, truly not true. So, in other words, you're going to have to put aside your preconceived notions of progress, of technology, of how certain things were invented. Just because someone claims a patent doesn't mean they did the work all by themselves. All of those sorts of things, and try to get at hidden truth in the process. But you also have to look at how technology is both positive and negative. And it's not about the technology itself. It's about what the technology is used for. It's how people use it. It's how it impacts other people over a long period of time, right? In other words, you have to have enough empathy to put yourself in other shoes beyond the shoes of just um, of the person who invented an item or people who are using it, but the people who might be hurt by it, right? Might be the very people using it, might be the people who aren't using it, but as a result might not have a job, right? Have to do different kind of work as a result. This is this particular piece of technology ended up being life altering for millions and millions of people. And what I'm asking you to do is take a quick peek at the various ways that it might have hurt people locally, nationally in the case of the US, internationally in terms of the industrialized, and maybe even parts of the non industrialized world, wherever people grew cotton or made cotton cloth, right? For instance. So, in other words, I'm asking you to piece together various themes over the previous 3, 4, 5 weeks, and putting them in a paper that is due at the end of week 5. So, that's it for now. I will talk about citations and references and other nuts and bolts in a few days.